At a luxurious restaurant in Los Angeles, where the elite gather and appearances often define worth, a simple misunderstanding sets the stage for an unexpected lesson. Clint Eastwood, a legendary figure in Hollywood, walks into the Grand Oak dressed in nothing more than a modest polo shirt and slacks. His unassuming appearance catches the eye of Rachel. Unaware of who he truly is, Rachel, a young and ambitious waitress, takes one look at his humble appearance and assumes he's just another ordinary diner. With a dismissive attitude, she not only asks him to move to the bar, but also makes an effort to embarrass him in front of the other guests. What Rachel doesn't realize, however, is that Clint Eastwood is not just any customer. He is the owner of the restaurant. What begins as a moment of disdain quickly turns into a powerful lesson in respect and humility, as Clint teaches Rachel, and the entire restaurant, a lesson that transcends appearances and reminds us all that true class is about how we treat others, not how they look. Before we jump into this powerful story, I've got a quick question for you. Where are you watching from? Whether you're in a bustling city or a quiet town, drop your location in the comments below. We love connecting with people from all walks of life, and if you believe in the power of respect, humility, and treating others with dignity no matter their status, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll always be reminded of the important lessons we can all learn from each other, no matter who we are or where we come from. Sometimes it only takes one moment to change everything, and in this story, that moment was brought to us by none other than Clint Eastwood. The Grand Oak was known for its prestige, a luxurious establishment in LA frequented by the city's elite. On a typical Friday evening, the restaurant buzzed with young tech moguls in designer suits, social media influencers capturing their expensive desserts, and families of old money maintaining their weekly traditions. The atmosphere was one of exclusivity, with the staff on their toes to meet the high expectations of the patrons. But one particular evening, an unsuspecting man in a simple gray polo shirt and slacks quietly sat at his usual corner table, sipping whiskey. Most of the staff didn't recognize him immediately, including Rachel, the newest waitress. She was more focused on the influencers and tech entrepreneurs than on the man who had quietly become part of the restaurant's everyday ambiance. Rachel, fresh from a prestigious hospitality school, had an eye for social media fame and influencer culture. She prided herself on being part of the modern luxury scene. It wasn't just about serving food. For Rachel, the status of the guests mattered. She spent her shift fawning over influencers, adjusting her behavior to cater to the tech moguls and the people she believed were the real clientele of the restaurant. Her gaze, however, often fell upon the man in the polo shirt with disdain. He wasn't dressed to her standards, and in her mind, he didn't belong. She didn't know it yet, but this man was no ordinary customer. He was Clint Eastwood, the owner of the very restaurant she worked at. As the evening wore on, Rachel's discomfort with the casual-dressed man grew. She approached Clint's table with a practiced smile, an attempt at professionalism that didn't quite reach her eyes. With an air of condescension, she suggested he might be more comfortable at the bar, as the table was reserved for real guests. She was curt, as if his attire and age disqualified him from the luxury ambiance of the restaurant. Clint, however, remained calm. He took another sip of his whiskey and met her gaze with the same unwavering composure that had seen him through decades of Hollywood challenges. His steady demeanor contrasted sharply with Rachel's mounting irritation. Rachel's professional veneer began to crack. She noticed the table full of tech executives waiting for their seats. Perhaps this was her opportunity to show them she was the gatekeeper of modern luxury. With the typical arrogance of someone who had not yet learned the true values of hospitality, she turned back to Clint and coldly explained that the prices on the menu reflected the caliber of their establishment. She paused meaningfully, her eyes scanning his casual attire. This wasn't just a professional encounter anymore. It was a moment where her assumptions and biases about class and status were about to collide with a reality she hadn't expected. Clint's response was simple and measured. He acknowledged her words, but maintained his calm. In the same quiet voice that had commanded the attention of Hollywood executives and audiences alike, he told her that he was well aware of the prices and the chef's menu. But instead of raising his voice or showing anger, Clint continued in his quiet, deliberate way. "I'm comfortable here." He didn't react to her jab about his age. He didn't need to. His steady, calm demeanor was more powerful than any confrontation could ever be. Miguel, the young busboy, had been nearby, clearing tables. He recognized Clint immediately. Growing up in Mexico, he'd watched every Clint Eastwood film with his father. Miguel was well aware of who this man was and what he represented, but unlike Rachel, Miguel understood something far more important: respect. He felt a deep urge to speak up, to defend Clint, but he held back, unsure of the consequences. Yet the tension in the room was palpable. Every action, every word was now carefully watched by the other diners. The moment arrived when Rachel, fully committed to her disdainful attitude, took it a step too far. She told Clint that this was not some diner off the highway, and that he didn't belong in their restaurant. Her words were laced with judgment, mocking Clint's age and appearance. Clint paused. He didn't flinch. He placed his whiskey glass down slowly, almost deliberately, commanding more attention than Rachel's outburst had. His words were measured and simple. In my day, things were different. People could walk in anywhere, dress how they wanted, and still be treated with respect. It was then that Rachel's own words began to hang in the air. She had not realized it yet, but she had crossed a line. She had not only insulted a customer, but she had insulted the very essence of what the Grand Oak stood for. Clint, in his own quiet way, was teaching her that true luxury, true class, was not defined by cheeky appearances, but by how people treated one another. Clint's voice didn't rise, but it carried the weight of decades of experience. He spoke softly, asking Rachel what modern luxury meant to her. She stammered, struggling to justify her view of the world. It was at that moment that Clint's calm tone turned into something more, a challenge. He asked her what she believed the restaurant stood for. It was clear that Rachel's vision was one of exclusivity, of catering to the wealthy and the famous, of pretending that status was what mattered. But Clint wasn't interested in that. He had bought the restaurant not for prestige, but to preserve a spirit of respect, dignity, and genuine hospitality. As Clint revealed the truth, that he had bought the Grand Oak 6 months earlier, Rachel stood frozen, the full weight of her actions crashing down on her. Clint wasn't just another customer, he was the owner, the very person who believed in the values that Rachel had mocked. He went on to tell a story from his past. Many years ago, he had visited this very restaurant when he was still an unknown actor, and the original owner, Old Man Thompson, had treated him with the utmost respect. It wasn't about who Clint was at the time, but about how everyone was treated with kindness and dignity. Clint had bought the restaurant to preserve that spirit, not to turn it into a place where only the wealthy and the famous were treated well. Rachel, now fully aware of the mistake she had made, found herself at a crossroads. Clint could fire her on the spot, but instead, he offered her a choice. He asked if she wanted to stay and learn how to truly serve with respect, to learn from Miguel, who understood what true hospitality meant, or she could leave and find another job in a place more focused on modern luxury. The choice was simple, yet profound. Rachel wiped her eyes, the reality of her arrogance sinking in. She knew what she had to do. Miguel, who had stood quietly by, his heart racing, was asked by Clint if he wanted to start training as a waiter. He had tried to warn Rachel, but unlike her, he understood what real service was about. Miguel's eyes widened with disbelief and gratitude, and he eagerly accepted the offer. Meanwhile, Clint gave Rachel the chance to learn from Miguel and the veteran staff, rather than simply walking away in shame. The room, which had been tense and uncomfortable, slowly began to relax. The older couple at the next table, who had been watching the exchange, nodded approvingly. Even some of the younger patrons, who had been caught up in the glamour of social media and luxury, put down their phones and began to appreciate the lesson unfolding before them. Clint, with his steady gaze, had shown them all that the real meaning of luxury was not in the gold leaf desserts, the designer clothes, or the number of Instagram followers. True class was about treating everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of how they dressed or who they were. The Grand Oak is not just another luxury restaurant. It is a place that continues to thrive because of its heart, its commitment to preserving the values of respect and dignity. Clint Eastwood's quiet, powerful lesson lives on in the restaurant's everyday operations. And perhaps if you happen to visit, on a Friday evening, you might just spot a man in a simple polo shirt sitting at his usual corner table, quietly ensuring that those values continue to guide the Grand Oak. Clint's lesson reminds us that true luxury is not about appearances or status, but about how we treat one another. It is a reminder that, in the end, respect is the highest form of class. Clint Eastwood's quiet yet powerful lesson showed that luxury isn't defined by exclusivity, but by the dignity and kindness extended to every person, regardless of who they are. In a world obsessed with image, real prestige lies in character. The Grand Oak thrived not because of its elite clientele, but because of the values it upheld, values that will always stand the test of time. What do you think? Have you ever experienced a situation where someone judged you unfairly? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring stories. See you in the next video.